Hello everybody, this is Roger Hanson with the strange, the bizarre, the unusual. I like it. And today I am going to be talking about the Basque. I'd like to introduce you guys to the Basques if you haven't already heard of them. If you have heard of them, then it's good to know. If you have any comments about it, I'd love to hear it. Now, before I get started, I would like to let everybody know that I am no longer using background music and things of that nature, because I've been doing some other streams concerning gaming because I like to game, and I've been learning a lot more about the copywriting and a lot of things that are going on with Facebook and YouTube and other platforms when it comes to music. So that's why the beginnings and the end doesn't have music like it used to. I also wanted to say that my beginning and my ends have like a 2-minute interval for a reason. On my previous videos that I just put out, I noticed that the beginning of my videos were being clipped off, and I was doing it before where I gave it 2 minutes to where the video can all work together and everything, and I have my OBS with a 2-minute delay to help out with the streaming, and I wanted to let everybody know that I'm doing this with low bit rate or upload speeds, so that's the reason why I have the delay, and that's the reason why I have 2 minutes before the video and 2 minutes after, so that I'll get started with the Basque. Now, I'm going to read some stuff to you about the Basque. The Basque are an indigenous ethnic group characterized by the Basque language, a common culture, and shared genetic ancestry to the ancient Vascones and Aquitanians. Basques are indigenous to the are indigenous to and primarily inhabit an area traditionally known as the Basque Country, a region that is located around the western end of the Pyrenees on the coast of the Bay of Basques, and saddles part of north central Spain and southern west France. Now, we talk about the Basques' history. Since the Basque language is unrelated to Indo-Europeans, it has long been thought to represent the people and culture that occupied Europe before the spread of Indo-European languages there. A comprehensive analysis of Basque genetic patterns have shown that Basque genetic uniqueness predates the arrival of agriculture in the Iberian Peninsula. That's about 7,000 years ago. It is thought that Basques are a remnant of the early inhabitants of Western Europe, specifically those of the Franco-Cantabrian region. Basque tribes were mentioned in Roman times by Strabo and Pliny, Pliny, including the Vascones, the Aquitani, and others. There is enough evidence to support the hypothesis that at that time and later they spoke old varieties of the Basque language. In the early Middle Ages, the territory between Ebro and Gironde rivers was known as Vasconia. a vaguely defined ethnic area and political entity struggling to fend off pressures from Iberian, Visigothic kingdom and Arab rule to the south, as well as Frankish push and the Board, while south of the Pyrenees, the Castile, Pamplona, and the Pyrenean countries of Aragon, Sabarbi, Rabagorza, later Kingdom of Aragon, and Pillars emerged as the main regional entities with Basque populations in the 9th and 10th century. The Kingdom of Pamplona, a central Basque realm later known as Navarre, underwent a process of feudalization and was subject to the influence of its much larger Aragonese, Castilian, and French neighbors. Castile deprived Navarre of its coastline by conquering key western territories between 1199 and 1201, leaving the kingdom landlocked. The Basques were ravaged by the War of the Bands, bitter partisan wars between local ruling families, weakened by the Navarrese Civil War. The bulk of the realm eventually fell before the onslaught of the Spanish armies between 1512 and 1524. However, the Navarrese territory north of Pyrenees remained beyond the reach of the increasingly powerful Spain. Lower Navarre became a province of France in 1620. Nevertheless, the Basques enjoyed a great deal of self-government until the French Revolution in 1790 and the Carlist Wars between 1879 and 1876, when the Basques supported their apparent Carlos V and his descendants. On either side of the Pyrenees, the Basques lost their native institutions and laws held during the Ancien regime. Since then, despite the current limited self-governing status of the Basque autonomous community, the Navarre, as settled by the Spanish Constitution, many Basques have attempted higher degrees of self-empowerment, sometimes by acts of violence. The Board, Lower Navarre, and Soule were integrated into the French department system starting 1790, with Basque efforts to establish a region-specific political administrative entity failing to take off to date. However, in January of 2017, a single agglomeration community was established for the Basque country in France. Now, the Basque, when it comes to their genetics, that's very, very important, and that is something that I do want to be discussing here in a second. But first, before we get into the genetics, I do want to talk about the politics. I'm going to go from their history to their politics. Okay. While there is no independent Basque state, Spain's autonomous community of the Basque Country, made up of the provinces of Araba, which is Araba, and Biscay, or Biscaya, or Vizcaya, Bizkaia, and Guipúzcoa, is primarily a historical consequence and an answer to a wide autonomy claim of its population. Navarre has a separate statute of autonomy, a continuous arrangement designed during Spanish transition to democracy, an upgrade of its previous status during dictatorship. It refers back to the kingdom status of Navarre up to 1841 and their traditional institution and legal framework, which is charters. Basque, the original main language of Navarre up to the 18th century, has kept family transmission, especially in the north part of Navarre and central areas, to a lesser extent designated as Basque-speaking or mixed area of Navarre law. Questions of political linguistics and cultural allegiance and identity are highly complex in Navarre. Politically, some Basque nationalists would like to integrate with the Basque autonomous community. The French Basque country today does not exist as a formal political entity, as is officially simply part of a French department of Pyrénées Atlanticus, centered in Béarn. In recent years, the number of mayors of the region supporting the creation of a separate Basque department has grown to 63.87%. So far, their attempts have been unsuccessful. And there is also more when it comes to their politics that I want to read to you, because there's things going on with the Basque that are actually something that really needs to be looked at. These people, you have to understand, are very unique. I've already read it, parts of it. They don't have any Indo-European influence in their language, which that right there says a lot, considering that the Indo-European language is one of the major languages that actually formed within Europe and parts of the Middle East, and that right there says a lot on its own. Now, the political status and violence, okay? Since its articulation by Sabino Arana in the late 19th century, the more radical currents of Basque nationalism has demanded the right of self-determination and even independence. Within the Basque country, this element of Basque politics is often in balance with the conception of the Basque country as just another part of the Spanish state, a view more commonly espoused of the right of the political spectrum. In contrast, the desire for greater autonomy and independence is particularly common among leftist Basque nationalists. The right of self-determination was asserted by the Basque Parliament in 2002 and 2006. Since self-determination is not recognized in the Spanish Constitution of 1978, a wide majority of Basques abstained, 55%, and some even voted against it, 23.5%. in the ratification referendum of December 6th of that year. However, it was approved by a clear majority overall in Spanish, 87%. The autonomous regime for the Basque country was approved in a 1979 referendum by the autonomy of Navarre, which is Jura Movimiento del Fuero, improvement of the charter, was never subject to a referendum, but only approved by the Navarrese Cortes, which is the parliament. Now, that is the politics behind the Basque. And from what I understand, though, and what I've seen on a lot of the videos that I watched and things I've read about the Basque, the reason why they want their autonomy and they want to be recognized as their own is because over time their culture is being perverted. Now you have Spain and France who are putting up these huge resorts on their beaches, and there's people that are going around in their cities and saying that they're Basque when they're not Basque. They're just working in hotels and resorts pretending to be Basque so that they can sell food and sell knickknacks to tourists who come along and buy their stuff, and I'm not saying that about everybody that's in that region, because there's a lot of Basque villages that are there, but their culture is being pretty much perverted, and you have to understand these are people who have their own language. They were isolated from the rest of the world all the way up until the early 20th century. I mean, they basically did their own thing, and now they're finding new things out when it comes to genetics and linguistics about the Basque people. They're a very unique culture, and for me, in my personal opinion, this culture needs to be preserved because it can actually be beneficial when it comes to history and the origins of the Basques and where they came from and stuff of that nature. So with that, I'm going to go from politics and I'm going to speak about their genetics. In 1920, H.G. Wells referred to the Mediterranean race as the Iberian race. He regarded it as a fourth subrace of the Caucasian race, along with the Aryan, Semitic, and Hamitic subraces. He stated that the main ethnic group that most purely represents the racist stock of Iberian race was the Basques, and that the Basques were the descendants of the Cro-Magnons. In 1994, in his book, The History and Geography of Human Genes, population geneticist L. Luca Cavalli Sforza stated that there is support from many sides of the hypothesis that the Basques are the descendants of the original Cro-Magnons. Even before the development of modern genetics based on DNA sequencing, Basques were already noted as distinctive genetic patterns, such as possessing the highest global proportion of the Rh blood type, 35% phenotypically, 60% genetically. Additionally, the Basques population was virtually no B blood type, nor the related AB type. They have a high rate of O blood group, but this is probably due to isolation. Although they are genetically distinctive in some ways, the Basques are still typically European in terms of their Y DNA and mtDNA sequences, and in terms of some other genetic loci, or LOCI, these same sequences are widespread throughout the western half of Europe, especially along the western fringe of the continent. The distinctiveness noted by studies of classic genetic markers such as blood groups and the apparent pre-Indo-European nature of the Basque language has resulted in a popular and long-held view that Basques are living fossils of the earliest modern humans who colonized Europe. However, studies of the Y chromosome found that on their direct male lineage, the vast majority of modern Basques have a common ancestry with other Western Europeans, namely a marked predominance of haplogroup R1b. Initially, haplogroup R1b was theorized to be that a Paleolithic marker introduced when Europe was repopulated after the last glacial maximum about 25,000 years ago. As such, populations were used as proxy representatives for the Paleolithic component in admixture studies that tried to quantify the extent of Neolithic diffusions. Such studies concluded that the main components of the European genomes appear to derive from ancestors whose features were similar to those of modern Basque and people of the Near East or Western Asia, with average values greater than 35% for both these parental populations, regardless of whether molecule information is taken into account or not. The smallest degree of both Basque and Near Eastern admixtures is found in Finland, where the highest values are respectively 70% Basque in Spain and roughly 60% Near Eastern in the Balkans. The theory encountered inconsistencies even prior to most recent chronological re-evaluations. The R1b should be a Paleolithic marker as an ad hoc assumption suggested by Semino et al. 2000 and propagated by subsequent scholars without further analysis. Higher resolution STR analysis of R1b lineage from other Western European populations, e.g. Italy or Britain, Wales, show that their population appears to derive from the Basque ones. More recent studies instead propose that R1b spread through Europe from Southwest Asia in the Neolithic period or later, between 4,000 and 8,000 years ago. Autosomal genetic studies have confirmed that Basques share close genetic ties to other Europeans, especially with Spaniards, who have a common genetic identity of over 70% with Basque. Homogeneity among both their Spanish and French populations, according to high-density SMP genotyping study done in May of 2010, and a genetic distinctiveness relative to other European populations. Several ancient DNA samples have been recovered and amplified for Paleolithic sites in the Basque region. The collection of mtDNA haplogroups sampled there differed significantly compared to their modern frequencies. The authors conclude that there is discontinuity between ancient locals and modern Basques. Thus, while Basques harbor some very archaic lineage, such as mtDNA HGU8A, they are not of undiluted Paleolithic ancestry, nor are they ancestral to large parts of Western Europe. Rather, their genetic distinctiveness is a result of centuries of low population size, genetic drift, and endogamy. New genetic findings in 2015, a new scientific study of Basque DNA was published, which seems to indicate that Basques are descendants of Neolithic farmers who mixed with local Mesolithic hunters before becoming genetically isolated from the rest of Europe for millennia. Matthias Jacobson from Uppsala University in Sweden analyzed genetic material from 8 Stone Age human skeletons found in El Portolón cavern in Atapuerca, northern Spain. These individuals lived between 3,500 and 5,500 years ago, after the transition to farming in southwest Europe. The results show that these early Iberian farmers are the closest ancestors to present-day Basques. The findings were published in Proceedings of the National Academy of Science of the United States. According to the study, the results show that the Basques trace their ancestry to early farming groups from Iberia, which contradicts previous views of them being a remnant population that traces their ancestries to Mesolithic hunter-gatherers groups. These early Neolithic farmer ancestors of the Basque, however, additionally mixed with local western hunter-gatherers, and the proportion of hunter-gatherer related admixture into early farmers also increased over the course of 2 millennia. These admixed groups was also found to be ancestral to other modern-day Iberian people, but while the Basque remained relatively isolated for millennia after this time, later migrations into Iberia led to distinct and additional admixtures of all other Iberian groups. So yeah, this is a very unique group of people, and I have been fascinated with them for a while. I also wanted to share this video, but I never did really have time to get around to doing it. If you have time, go online, check out the story concerning the Basque, and I'm sure you will be fascinated with everything that's gotten involved with them. They've even got research groups here in the United States that literally do research on just the Basque. So it's really a good subject to look at and to think about. Well, I hope that you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like, subscribe, share, make comments. I'd love to hear what you have to say. We'd love feedback, and thank you for watching.